Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our first sports exclusive. My name is Varun Bhatt, and today we have with us the Greg Jackson, a man who has accomplished a lot in the sport of mixed martial arts. I mean, if I probably go and tell you the fighters he's trained, the whole show will just go on taking names. So I'm going to divulge into the interview already. Mr. Jackson, how are you doing?
I'm very well, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, and a long day for you, a busy day for
Yeah, it
you.
was, but a good day. It was always a good day.
So, I mean, after searching you up on YouTube and searching you up on different sites, I've established the fact that you don't do a lot of interviews.
I do
Uh,
not.
yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure about that. So, for your fans who want to get a perspective of what you are outside mixed martial arts, like, please tell us about your early beginnings and how did you find martial arts? Like, what was the reason you got into martial arts?
Well, when I was a very young kid, I moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, in the United States, and it is a very Hispanic community with a lot of machismo. So it is also in the United States. It's one of the more poorer places. And my parents were very good people. They wanted to help out, so they kind of moved there to help out. And so I was raised in that environment. And in that environment, they didn't really care if I could play football well or if I was good in school. They just really cared about if you could fight or not. So I figured, well, I better learn how to do that so I could have some self-respect and be able to, just be myself, my own personality, and not have to worry about anything else. So that's where it started from, was just a need. I needed to defend myself. So I didn't watch like a Bruce Lee movie or anything like that, or Jean-Claude Van Damme. Those guys are a lot of fun to watch, but for me, it was necessity based. I had to learn how to fight because I was going to be fighting a lot. And the that was kind of began my journey.
Uh, that is a great way to start. But I mean, I don't know about the society there, but where I am from, right? Taking up martial arts or a sport as a career is something you really have to think about. So when did you think that you are going to, do this for your life? Like this is going to be something lifetime. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
Well, I knew I wanted to teach martial arts because I was having a lot of fun doing
Mhm.
it.
Right.
And I never, I never thought mixed martial arts, the sports side, would blow up the way it did. So I was going to be very happy just teaching some students and having a small school and just kind of figuring out the best way to do things. Um, I never thought it would be as big as it is, or that I'd be talking to somebody like you across halfway across the world. Well, pretty much all the way across the world. It was very surprising, a very pleasant surprise that I could make a living at it. But really, I was just focusing on being the best martial artist I could and teaching people and making a little money out there. But I never thought I would be super successful. I didn't really care too much. All I cared about was doing the martial arts the best I could do it. I always wanted to. I opened my school when I was 17 years old. I was just a kid. Um, and I didn't really have any others. I dedicated my life to it, so I didn't have any other skills. I do not cook very well. I'm terrible with computers, so yeah, this it was either this or nothing as I look back.
I can relate to the last part, but just that I'm not as good as you at martial arts either. So I have a long
uh,
way to go.
no, you've got a long time in front of you, my friend. You've got a long time in front of you. You'll probably pass me.
Well, I have nothing to say on that. But so now, I mean, you said that you never thought MMA would blow up the way it did. So what was your first reaction to the very first UFC event in 1993?
I was just impressed. I was amazed at we were doing something very similar, but at a very basic level. And when I saw the Gracie family performing, fighting, and just being amazing, I realized, well, these guys are like, they have their PhD, and I am in the lowest level. I'm in kindergarten at that point, so it was very exciting because I knew I had a lot to learn and a lot to discover. So just watching how effective their style was, and knowing that there was nobody in New Mexico and where I'm from to teach me, so I had to figure it out myself. But it was very exciting to see something so effective, because in the 1980s, especially in the martial arts, everybody was a ninja, or they wanted to like use their cheap power to blow you through the wall and smash you. And so just things that weren't realistically going to happen. So it was a nice breath of fresh air to actually see, this is the martial arts effectiveness, and you can actually see it in a fight. That was a big deal. And so it was just pure excitement. I was just like, wow, these guys are amazing. And I have to try to figure out how to do this.
And at that point, I guess the striking arts were like more influential in the minds of the people, like karate and kickboxing. Like they were way more popular than what a grappler could do, right?
That's true. And it really showed how somebody that trained in the striking arts and in the ground arts, because went back and forth there for a while. It was all jiu-jitsu people, then wrestlers figured it out, then kickboxers figured out a sprawl again. But it was a really cool kind of window into, well, you need to be a complete fighter. You need to be able to strike and to grapple. And like you said, up until then, it was all striking.
Yeah, I mean, that's what even I've heard from my coaches who've been
Right.
watching the sport, for that long.
Right.
Well, so, when someone tells me about the first super camp in mixed martial arts, it is always Jackson's Wink that comes to mind. So yeah, please.
There were some other ones around the same time that were more famous than me. The Lion's Den, Militich. There were some very good ones. But yeah, we were there at the beginning. There's no doubt.
I am aware of those gyms, but when I really mean super camp, right? I mean the roster you hosted at your gym. It was like, I mean, if you watch football or soccer, as they say in the US, it was like having the Galacticos of Real Madrid assembled, all these stars together.
It was a lot of fun at that time because of, there were so many great athletes. There were so many we all felt like we were kind of pushing new ground and discovering new things and figuring out new ways to do stuff. And it was a lot of fun. It's still pretty fun today, but that was a very special time when we first really got going.
So how did you actually lay the foundations of Jackson Wink? Because to be very honest, to lay the foundations of such a big gym, of such a big team, and you have such a big roster competing in the UFC, it is quite the task, I assume. So how did you lay your foundations, and how did it start? How did Jackson MMA start?
Well, it was my students actually talked me into it. I didn't have any interest in competing or even have them competing, because again, for me, it was about self-defense stuff because of how I was raised. So my students actually talked me into the very first tournaments and competitions. They wanted to go compete. So this is probably about 1995, 94, right around there, where the rules were just crazy, and you didn't have gloves on. And yeah, it was like the Wild West, we used to call it. It was a crazy time. That's the origin of the rules meeting, is everybody had different rules everywhere you went. Anyway, so my students talked me into it, and they were the ones that really wanted to compete. And I thought, we could do all right, maybe, win a little bit, and then we'll go right back to work. Well, we won everything because we trained hard and we had good information. And so then they were addicted to it, and they wanted to compete all the time. And now 30 years later, here I am talking to you. But really, that was it. They talked me into it. I didn't have any desire to be a coach or to be a fighter or anything like that. I mean, after I started training him, well, I figured I could be the best coach I could be. I would try to be the best, but it didn't start out that way.
But I mean, what started with the force of your students has turned out to be great for you and for the entire MMA community.
Well, certainly I got lucky to get in early, and I'm very grateful for all the people that I've got to train over the years. And it's been such an amazing ride. And I'm still pretty young because I started so young. So it's still super fun. I'm still having a great time doing it. But yeah, it's been an amazing ride so far.
And then along the way, you met Coach Winklejohn, and you have created a very formidable partnership. You can see that in the gym. You can see that with the way you both coach students. And when you see the social media page, you both are super friendly, and you just make a great team. So how did that happen? How did you meet Coach Winklejohn?
Well, I needed help. I was doing a lot of grappling stuff, and I needed some help striking at a high level. And he was a world champion at the time. And so we started training together. We just hit it off immediately. And then in about 2007, he was going to retire, and I said, "No, sir, you're not retiring. We're going to make a team and officially." And so that's when we started Jackson Wink. So I opened my school in 1992, and then in 2007 we kind of took the next step up to making a formal partnership, and it's been super fun ever since.
I can only assume, and we can also see. I mean, I can assume because obviously we are not present for the training sessions, but I'm sure they are a lot of fun, and I mean, they have yielded results too, right?
Right.
One of the questions I've been wanting to ask you for a very long time, like I never thought I'm going to interview you. I thought that when I meet you, I would ask you, but now that I'm interviewing you, I would like to ask you, like, you have a room with guys like John Jones, you have Rashad Evans, you have GSP, you have Donald Cerrone, you have all these big names. How do you manage these people? I mean,
Question.
I mean, at some point, I'm not saying this is what has happened, but at some point, sometimes there is a chance that there might somewhat be, you know, what we call an ego clash. I'm not saying
Oh
it
yeah.
happened, but there is a chance it will
Oh,
happen. So how do you
well,
handle it?
you have to have some strong leadership. You have to really care about the individuals. That's the important thing. Fighters will know if you're phony or if you're in it for yourself. So you really have to come from a genuine place, and so that they respect you. You have to have a respect, and then if you have respect, you can say, okay, well, let's address these problems, let's work through them. But without the respect of the fighters, you can't get much done. So I was very lucky that I used to train with all of them, sparring around and stuff. And then they could, on top of that, they saw that I was, had their best interests genuinely at heart. And so then when problems did arise and when ego clashes did happen, they would listen to me and I was able to navigate that. But that was only because of their respect for me, which I was very lucky to receive. And that allowed the team to function at a very high level for a very long time.
So, like when you say respect, I mean, obviously you have respect from your students and from the entire MMA community, but you also mentioned a very strong word called leadership. So, for leadership, who is your inspiration? Like, whom do you look up to?
I try to learn from a lot of leaders throughout history. The four that I really studied was two of our American presidents, which was George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, and then a British polar explorer named Ernest Shackleton, who was just an amazing leader. And then, of course, the great Mongolian leader Genghis Khan. That really, there's very few people in history that started with nothing and went on to conquer the entire world. Just him by himself. I mean, of course, he had his army and stuff, but things like Rome and those they built up over time with a lot of people over and over. Or even India. I mean, there's such a long history there of so many great generals. But for Genghis Khan, he started with a bunch of nomads and eventually conquered the world in one lifetime. So that guy's one of the best leaders ever.
That is your source of inspiration. Now, when I asked you about the ego clash and having, you know, like so many talented fighters in a room, I know it is going to be very hard to single out and it is going to be unfair on some others. But who, according to you, is the toughest fighter you have trained? Like someone who can push really hard compared to the
I'll
others.
tell you, I'll tell you one that you might not think is tough, and that's Holly Holm. She is one of the toughest individuals, male or female, I have ever met. I have watched her win fights with her arm broken in half. I have watched her in incredible injuries that most fighters would end their career, knees. I've watched her fight, and even if she loses those fights, they're still very close. So just mentally, she is one of the absolute toughest people I have ever met. She's unbelievably strong and can take pain like crazy. She's something else. I'm always very impressed and very honored that I get to train her, just because, again, her mental toughness is second to none.
I have no doubts about that, and especially that knockout of Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, that was a good night.
I mean, that was like that shocked the world. If I'm going to put it into words, because Rousey had such a dominant streak. I mean, for you as a coach, you would probably expect that from her. You would expect it from your student that she goes out there and she performs well. But for the
Yes.
fans watching, I mean, it was like, what was that night like? The night she knocked out Ronda Rousey.
It was a very good night. We were very nervous, but I was strangely calm. I felt we were prepared. Mr. Winklejohn had really helped to get her ready, and I had prepared. I thought a pretty good game plan, and we saw a little thing that she does when with her left hand, she'll reach up and try to grab you behind the neck. And so we prepared for some of her major things like that, and then it went almost exactly to plan. So those nights are very special. They don't always happen. Sometimes you don't get to shock the world, but sometimes you do. And I just remember being very satisfied. Everybody else was dancing around and singing as they should. But me, I was much more calm. I felt very satisfied that I had done my job right, and that Holly had done this amazing job of fighting hard and listening and training and preparing. And yeah, it was the perfect night. So I really enjoyed it. Sometimes you wish you could relive a moment. That's definitely one of them.
With the roster you have, I'm sure you're going to have a lot more champions. I mean, obviously, like the moments are going to be recreated, but the one you have with home knocking out Rousey will always be special to you. So there's no doubt about that.
It's very special. Yeah. We have one of our guys coming up, Aaron Pico. He's fighting in Bellator next week, and the kid's amazing. So make sure everybody watch. I believe it's next Saturday. He's going to fight a really tough guy, Kennedy, and it's going to be a great fight. But he's our future. That kid is something else.
I have seen Aaron Pico, and he's indeed the future. I mean, the man has his wrestling sword, he has his striking sword, and now he's with you all. So the future is indeed exciting for him. But shifting this conversation back to home. So, I mean, since the time she knocked out Rousey, right? Women's mixed martial arts has come very far. So, what's your point on that? Like, how have you seen women's MMA grow?
Well, I mean, it was great to be involved in women's MMA early on. The like the fight between Julie Kedzie and Gina Carano. There's like being around that and seeing the real trailblazers of female MMA, people that a lot of fans wouldn't know, but watching them toil and for nothing really, and I mean, no money and not a lot of respect. It's really been fun, and so yeah, to see where it is now, it's a legitimate. People will watch female fighters. Like sometimes they won't watch the WNBA, which is the female basketball league in the United States. But the women fighters have a lot of respect. They can sell cards. People will watch them. So I'm just proud that they are able to compete and have a good time, and that's a career path for them. And I think that's important if you're a feminist. You don't need to hate men. You just need to be treated the same. And I think that's very important. And it's nice to see in MMA that is heading in that direction.
I definitely agree with you on that point. A question I've been wanting to ask you, another question in fact, I wanted to ask you for a long time is, how did GSP come to your camp? How did that move happen? I mean,
So
Was he with Firas before that? Was he training with Danaher before that? Or did he start training with you and then move to Danaher? I'm unaware of it.
so he was with Faraz and had been doing jujitsu with Danahar, and I don't remember exactly when he started with John. But yeah, we all know that John's just one of the most amazing jiu-jitsu coaches of all time. He's an incredible individual. He's so smart. And Faraz is one of the best coaches ever too. So when I met them, Faraz was a very, very young coach. And so they needed sparring partners and some structure stuff. And I would always go up to take my fighters into Montreal to fight in the TKO in those days. And we met and talked, and we both hit it off right away. And he enjoyed the team. He got very close with a lot of people on the team. But we basically, when I was going up to Montreal, we talked, and I talked with Faraz, and yeah, we just kind of morphed from there. But I mean, how lucky am I? I got to work with one of the greatest mixed martial artists of all time. I don't know how I get so lucky. Sometimes I sit back and I'm like, just in the right time at the right place, right time, right place. That's it. So, we were very friendly. When I met him, he was still living in his with his parents. He was kind of in the basement there. He had his little room down there. I had one picture, and now to see where he is and how well he's doing, just to watch his growth as a fighter and as a person. And he's still the same guy. He's still a wonderful person. His fame has not changed him, which is very, very rare. Yeah, I mean, it's been an absolute privilege to work with him. And then later on down the road, Danaher started getting into a little bit more into mixed martial arts stuff. And so it was me and him and Faraz. But he had great coaches, Phil Nurse, John Chainberg. There were just amazing coaches that he trained with. Even Victor, the coach that worked with his mixed martial arts career before I came in. They're just he was lucky to have some great coaches, and I was certainly lucky that I got to work with him.
Yeah, there is no doubt on GSP's legacy. Were you disappointed that we never got to see him fight Habib Nurmagomedov even after all that talk?
No, I'm just grateful to get whatever opportunities I had, and if that fight happened or happens somehow in the future or whatever, I mean, the fans will be obviously overjoyed because what an amazing fight it would be. But yeah, it was. I have the utmost respect for Khabib. I think he's just an amazing person. I was a huge fan of his dad. His dad was one of the best coaches ever, and yeah, it would have been a great fight between those two.
Yeah, because like when you mentioned a key attribute of GSP, the humility, even after achieving so much fame, even Habib is someone similar, right? I mean, even after achieving a lot of fame, you see him very close with his family, close with his community, and still focused on the goal. So I'm sure that a fight between them would have blown the roof off. Any predictions? I mean, I don't want to force you into it.
Well, it would. I mean, I trade GSP, so I always have to go with my guy. But listen, Khabib is obviously one of the greatest to ever do it. And you said correctly, he's a very good person. Like he's, you can really respect him as a person and as a fighter, and you don't always get both like that.
Like GSP, another fighter you've trained is Yoel Romero, and for some reason that man does not age.
I didn't get to train Yoel as much as I would have liked to. But yeah, he is one of those guys that has so many accolades through so many sports. I mean, he was an amazing wrestler before he ever got to MMA, just phenomenal wrestler. And then seeing what he did in MMA, and yeah, still today, he can still just do backflips at the drop of a hat. I mean, yeah, he's, I don't know where the fountain of youth is, but I think he's found it.
I mean, this is one thing, right? That this is what people say, that heavyweights usually last a bit longer compared to the other weight classes. But here you have a middleweight who is, I guess, 44, 45, and he's still dominating people left, right, and center. I mean, whether it's in Bellator or in the UFC, he's done well. He did so well against Whitaker, who was a young and strong fighter at that point when he fought him.
He's such a cerebral fighter. He's very smart about how he does things, and then he's just a crazy athlete. I mean, he's just an insane athlete. So yeah, you put those two things together, you're going to have a dangerous individual for sure.
So now when you see all these champions, when you see GSP, when you see John Jones, when you see Rashad Evans, what do you think is the mentality one needs to have to reach those heights? I mean, if you had to advise all the young fighters right now who are going to be watching this interview, what is the type of mentality you need to have to reach that level, to reach the top?
That's a very good question. And there's not one specific answer, but there are some trends that you can see. Being able to handle their personal life is pretty important outside of the cage. But I will tell you that all of those guys were extra hard workers. So if I asked them to run 3 miles, they would run 4 miles. If I asked them for 100 push-ups, they would do 101 push-ups. It's just the mentality of always doing a little bit more than everybody else is one of the most important attributes that I've seen. And then coachability. They listen, they're humble. They don't, a lot of fighters will try to tell the coaches, okay, here's what I want to do, or here's what I think we should do. But all those fighters were very humble and would listen and collaborate, but not try to run the show. They were very receptive. And I think that is also very important, because when you start telling the coaches and your training partners how to act, you're not allowing your mind to deal with whatever problems they're going to bring to you. And that's what fighting is. So it's over control. It's too much. And you need to be pushed a little bit. You need to be made uncomfortable. You need to kind of find a place where you have to solve problems that you might not want to solve. These are important things, and so I think that's another attribute.
So, I mean, since you have been so experienced in this field, a question I would like to ask you is, we've seen someone like Conor McGregor dominate the sport for such a long time. Unfortunately, he had a loss to Dustin Poirier. I mean, it is not a way Poirier would have loved to win at UFC 264, but it was an unfortunate incident. His last five fights, like Conor has lost three and won two. Do you think that there is a particular reason he's suffering through this decline, or is it something he's just going through and will he be back at the top? How do you see Conor McGregor's future as a coach? I mean, someone who, who's been experienced in this field.
Well, I think that it's a very natural thing that you go through the highs and the lows of the competing. He'll need to kind of get. He already had everything, you know what I mean? He was a multi-champion. He's very wealthy. He's kind of accomplished all of his goals, and that can be hard to then come back from. If you've already done everything you want to do and you're financially secure, your motivation might not be the same as it was before. I don't know personally, but that maybe was what happened. I'm not sure, but I can only speculate. And we hope. I mean, he's such an amazing fighter, and he's always been very kind to me personally. So we hope that he, before he retires, he turns around a little bit and brings it back, because maybe that's the motivation he needed. But yeah, it happens to fighters sometimes. The fighters are doing everything the same, but the winning isn't there, and it can be a bunch of different factors. But it probably, in my opinion, might be motivation, and I don't know him for sure, so I can't tell you definitively. But that's one thing that I've seen happen a lot.
But then, when this one thing I really appreciate about the man is, like, when he fought Floyd, he could have comfortably retired, but he still stepped into the octagon, and he still competed. Like, the passion for mixed martial arts was there, even though he probably had mixed results against Khabib and then these two fights against Poirier. But he still he entered the octagon and he fought. He walked in like a champion and he walked out a champion. So when we mention McGregor, another name that comes to my mind is Tony Ferguson, and he was at Jackson Wink. How was that experience? How was it training Tony? You've worked with him, right?
Yeah, I got to work with him a little bit, not as much as I wanted to. He had to take a short-minute fight, so I only worked with him a couple of times. But what a warrior! And then just a very interesting guy. I like talking to him. He's very smart. He has this kind of his own way of doing things, which I really like. Like, his work ethic is really cool, and he has so many skills, I think, that he hasn't shown yet. His wrestling stuff, things that he can do better. So it's super fun. I'm hoping to continue to work with him, because even though a lot of people would say, "Oh, his career is over," I think he's got a couple of good fights left in him still. So hopefully we'll be able to get right back to work, because I really feel that he has some things on the table that he can come to, and he shouldn't be done yet.
I mean, I'm really sure he does have what it takes to get back to the top, because that win streak he had. I mean, it requires an elite mentality to do something like that. Only someone with a real mindset, could go and do something like that. Just for some final questions, like, Jackson Wink MMA now has a lot of fighters from different part of the world, in fact. So who are some of the fighters whom want to, like, we should watch out for?
Wow, I mean, I said Aaron already, and if I start saying more, they're going to be all mad. Why did you forget me? But Damon Blackshear is going to be great in the UFC. Isaiah Hawkins is going to be good in Bellator. Davian Franklin is great in the Bellator, as is Christian, as is there's so many fighters. Yeah, I'm going to forget a bunch of them, but there's a whole group of new fighters from all over the world that are really starting to win and push forward. And if they lose, they then come back and win stronger. So it's a fun time right now to be a part of kind of the next generation that's ramping up.
Well, I am only going to wish you the very best for your gym, the very best for your team. And before you depart, any final message to your fans, to your viewers, and to all those who love you?
Well, thank you for the support. Thank you very much. It's been a great ride, and I don't deserve my success, but I'll take it, and I'm very grateful for it.
Okay, so I mean, this is just going to be a modesty when you say that you don't deserve it, because okay, so see, I'm a reporter. I'm not supposed to have opinions, but I'm going to tell you that I do have the utmost respect for you, and what you've achieved in the sport, what you have done for the sport is going to be something that is going to stay as long as the sport stays. So we can only be
Thank-
grateful to you.
Very kind of you. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time, and I hope I can do this once more with you.
As many as you need, my friend. I'm always here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. That's Greg Jackson, ladies and gentlemen, one of the best coaches, the best MMA coach in the world, and we are gratefully joined us. To follow him, I mean, I'm going to add his social media handles on in the description below. You will have the Jackson Wink Instagram handle and the Twitter handle and the First Sports social media handles. So stay tuned for another interview. We hope to see you back, coach. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you.